Granahan, and this is Carded Tarot Tales Safer at Home Edition. I'm thrilled to be joined with two of the storytellers who were here for our inaugural show last week. They're back to share more fantastic tales with us, and we have two additional storytellers who I'm really looking forward to hearing what they're going to do. And I think I'm really excited to be putting on a show that combines tarot and storytelling. I think they go hand in hand. Sort of what makes tarot cards work is our ability to turn the pictures we see on the cards into stories in our minds and reflect on the own stories we're telling ourselves about who we are and what we do and what, the way things work. I'm really excited to be working with the tarot of Jacques Vauvel this week, and it's a historic tarot from 1650 that it was actually reverse printed. Tarot cards were a big source of income for the tax authorities, and I believe this was printed in Dijon, France, and the tax authorities actually destroyed the wood blocks that were used to print this deck, and they traced it. They traced existing printings back onto the wood block, and then when they made decks preceding that, they came out reversed. So it's a fun thing to explore, and it's sort of it's a neat historic deck because there's actually a copy preserved originally or preserved intact in the France National Museum. So this is one of the few historic decks. It's from 1650, and we have a complete copy. It survived into this day. Obviously, mine isn't from 1650. It's a modern reproduction, but I'm looking forward to using it all with you. So that being said, on with the show. I'm more than excited to bring our next storyteller up. She was wonderful last week, and I'm so excited to have her back again. Please welcome virtually MJ Kang.
Thank you, Ryan. It's been wonderful meeting you virtually, and thank you for everyone for listening tonight. I was 4 months pregnant with my first and only pregnancy when my mother told me on the phone that she had 3 easy, natural deliveries. She took no painkillers in any of them. She also felt no pain, and I was the easiest delivery, being the third and last of her 3 children. She was having lunch with a friend in Seoul, Korea, when her friend told my mother she needed to go to the hospital right away because she was in labor. I almost came out in the taxi cab. She barely had to push, and in 20 minutes after she checked into the hospital, I was there. My father didn't even make it in time for my birth. But when he saw me, he tried to put on a brave face when he found out that I was his 3rd girl. 3 girls and no boys in a Korean household. That was not good. We were all just future burdens according to tradition. None of us would pass on the blood lineage, no one for my father to play baseball with, or so they thought. But to alleviate my mother's feeling of shame, which in retrospect is ridiculous, my father carried me in his arms, told my mother I was beautiful, which I wasn't, and said one day she will become Miss Korea. Throughout my childhood, we watched the beauty pageants on television, and when we ran into a family friend who had relatives who competed in Miss Korea, my parents made sure to introduce me as a future Miss Korea. So I'm 5'3" on a good day and wearing heels. While there are Koreans who have long legs, my parents are not one of them. I did think when I was younger, perhaps I might have a chance at growing taller than both my parents since they grew up during the Korean War and food was scarce. I mean, malnutrition does impede growth. But no, that did not come true. My genes are short. Growing up, I knew I would never become Miss Korea, and it had nothing to do with my size or my face, since plastic surgery is a requirement to participate in beauty pageants. It had to do with me. I had no desire to become Miss Korea. But I did enjoy watching them strut their stuff on television. I liked how they answered the questions by repeating the question and then answering slowly, thoughtfully, so they could take their time while their makeup remained perfectly still, as well as their smiles. I also liked how they swished in their long evening gowns that sparkled and looked heavy, but they remained tall, regal, and with perfect posture. I didn't like how skinny they were or how their talent was not very talented, except when a Miss Korea competed in Miss Universe and she played the piano. That was impressive to my young eyes. But I didn't think she was that pretty. It's so weird to think that I spent time doing this as if it were a sport. And I spent time looking at myself in the mirror too, looking at my imperfections, seeing how my features could be altered if I had double eyelids or a thinner nose instead of my hooded monolids and mushroom shaped nose, if I looked more Western. People have always liked my cheekbones. They are very Korean, and I am told they are acceptable. I inherited them from my mother. I have a solid chin as well, a good chin that physiognomists would identify as grounded. I also have a large forehead that shows confidence, but not too large because that would show arrogance. I spent time researching the art of telling the future based on one's facial proportions as a youth. This was important to me since I wouldn't fulfill my parents' dreams of me becoming Miss Korea, but perhaps I could still amount to something. I may not be an ideal beauty, but I have some features that work. Months after that phone conversation with my mother, I did give birth naturally to my now 12-year-old daughter. I pushed 20 minutes, so it was relatively easy, but incredibly painful. And while I had a quick recovery and was able to leave the hospital early, the ring of fire I had read about when researching natural birth delivery is well named. I told my mother the delivery I had was painful, and she told me, yes, all of her deliveries were painful too. And she was afraid I wouldn't go through with a natural delivery if she had told me how painful it really is. I would have, because I was raised by a very naturally minded mother, so I'm more terrified of painkillers than pain. When my daughter was born, my husband didn't hold her up and say she'll become Miss Korea. He held her and she grabbed his glasses off his face. It took him a moment to take them back. He laughed and told our 5-minute-old daughter, I want to see you. Please give me my glasses. And she did. And he also wanted a daughter. While I was extremely happy to have a healthy baby, there was a part of me that was hoping for a boy, to give my father the boy he never had. But when we found out we were going to have a daughter, I was very excited to be her mother. Throughout my pregnancy, I was worried that she might look like an alien. The sonograms of her were not flattering because she was pressed against my womb. But when she came out, perfect in my eyes, I could see how my father would have picked me up and said she'll become Miss Korea. When you're introduced to your new child, whether via birth or adoption, they are perfect. At 12 years old, my daughter has never seen a beauty pageant. We don't have a television, but she does enjoy binge watching British baking shows via online streaming. We love watching them together. She doesn't spend time in front of the mirror looking at her physical faults. She has other more important interests such as robotics and science. She truly loves and accepts herself. It took my childhood and hers for me to know how important it is to love myself for who I am. We are all perfectly perfect, exactly the way we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, MJ. That was wonderful. That's an amazing story. I like anything. I don't know. I very much appreciate stories where parents reflect on parenthood and giving birth and sort of how that changes a person, because it's. I think becoming a parent is one of the more extreme experiences you can have. That's not a negative experience. Like, that's not a disaster of some sort. I think nothing probably alters your life as much as creating more life. And I had to reflect a little bit. I changed direction a couple times on what card I was going to pair with that. And the card I chose for MJ was the Queen of Cups. And the reason I chose that was twofold. One is because so she ends up a queen after all anyway, after all that. But it's also there's a keynote to the card that I actually just learned about recently, and it's someone who's really perceptive and intuitive about other people's intentions and states of mind, at the risk of maybe sometimes being interpreted as eccentric. And I liked that she shared about reading people's facial features. I thought that was awesome. But ultimately, what really drove this card home for me was the feeling of sort of self-mastery and mastery over emotion, and understanding when she looked at her own daughter that her daughter was perfect. To me, like that is 100% the Queen of Cups. And I love that so much, and I am so appreciative of her sharing that with us. I think that's a wonderful story to have to kick off the evening. So thank you, MJ. And it's my pleasure and responsibility to introduce our next storyteller, who is someone I was grateful to get to meet in real life before we all went on lockdown. It's been a pleasure to get to know her better, and she's a tarot enthusiast as well, and she's had some tarot events that I've been to, as well as her own storytelling show that she co-produces at her store, Love Bazaar, and that is our next storyteller, Suzy Mae. I'm really looking forward to having her with us tonight, and here's Suzy.
Hello, everybody out there in live stream world. I'm taking off my headphones. Thank you so much for that wonderful intro, Ryan. I really appreciate it. What a great story by MJ. So I'm telling a story tonight very much inspired by the emotions I've been feeling lately. The reason why we're all at home, the reason why we're live streaming this show, and that's the coronavirus. So the coronavirus has me feeling all kinds of ways. I like to tell people I'm going through like the stages of grief. I went through anger. I think I'm like somewhere around bargaining right now. But the thing that it really grips me late at night is fear. Fear is huge. And there are some ways that fear hits us harder than others. So I'm going to go back in time, turning the dials back to when I lived in Portland. This is a Portland story, when I was in my 20s. If you know anything about Portland, you know that it's on a grid. There is Burnside, the east-west street that bisects the city one way. And then there is the river, the Willamette, that bisects the city north to south. So I worked at a little sushi restaurant on 13th on the west side, and I lived in a little studio apartment on 13th on the east side. And that little studio apartment, I loved having my own little studio apartment. It was in a very sketchy part of town, this industrial district right behind a bottling factory that had a big 7-Up, like a big vintage 7-Up sign on it. But what it really bottled was Rockstar energy drink. And every time I'll be at a bar or at a restaurant or some grimy, 7-Eleven parking lot, and someone will pop open a Rockstar, and that scent, I've never drank one in my life, but it brings me all the way back to Portland. There would be like a mist that went up in the air, and then your car and everything outside would be sticky, and it would smell really sweet for days. So literally an industrial neighborhood. Across from my apartment building was the Econo Lodge, a very sketchy lodge that rented rooms by the hour. And then across from that was the Sandy Hut, or as locals would call it, the Handy Slut. Super divey dive bar that for some reason served food. Never ate there once, but their food looked like refried chili on a stick. It looked terrible. Anyway, so now you kind of understand, like, my 20s life. I'm waiting tables. I'm, trying to create my own reality. I'm an artist. I'm like going for it. But you can't go anywhere in Portland. Little did I know. So I'm walking home, and normally when I get off my shift as a waitress, it's like 2 a.m. in the morning. I've got cash on me. I would bike or I would drive. But this particular night I was walking with my sushi chef. And I knew he lived across the river So it gave me a little bit more courage than I normally would have. I'd also probably been drinking, liquid courage is a real thing. So we get through downtown just fine. We go to cross the Burnside Bridge, and there is a puddle of blood, just thick, gooey, fresh, warm blood. We don't see anybody around. We haven't heard screaming. Just somebody could have possibly lost their lives right in front of us. So the mood gets really gross. The mood gets very dark. We have to step over this blood, like jump over it like it's a springtime puddle. And my chef looks at me and he just goes, "That's not good." And I said, look, it's okay. We'll just create our own reality. Like, as soon as we crest the bridge, as soon as we get to the top of the bridge, we'll get this warm wind blowing in our faces and everything will feel safe. And we're both going to get home unscathed. And we get to the top of the bridge. We crest the bridge. We're at the apex. And a cold-ass wind, like, blows us, like a Chicago wind, blows us to our cores. And he looks at me again and he says, "That's not good." So as we're going down the bridge, he's like 3 blocks in to the east side. He bounces. He's going to his apartment building. He says, "See ya. Good luck. Bye. That was a weird night." So I'm cold. I've got my jacket wrapped around me. I've got my bag. I'm, wearing little heeled boots. I'm annoyed that I have to get home alone, but I'm getting home alone. And I'm just going to smoke some weed and have some tea, and it's going to be a beautiful evening. And as I'm still in this industrial part of town, I haven't yet, if you know Portland, you know that the strip of Burnside I'm talking about, there's a strip club called Union Jack's. There is a hotel restaurant called the Doug Fir. There's a little karaoke bar across the street called Galaxy. This is all in a little strip, basically 15 years ago. And I was not yet at that strip of civilization. I was still in no man's land. And someone in a car, sitting in a car on the right-hand side of the street, the south side of the street, makes a move and looks at me from in the car. And my instinct was, okay, I must know this person. So I look back really quick. And I instantly realized I don't know who this person is. They had like one of those curly mustaches that like hangs down, prison eyes, like I swear, like a gang bandana. It just thought this dude looked like bad news. So I straighten up and I start walking even faster, and he starts his car and starts to follow me. I run. Not yet, but like I notice that he's following me. My instinct is to run, but I'm like, play it cool, play it cool, play it cool. He drives up alongside me, and I stop, backtrack, go around his car, and cross the street. He doesn't like that. And I can tell he doesn't like that because he guns it, makes a right-hand turn around the block, and I can hear his car screaming as he's like whipping it around the corner to come get me from the, and he goes across the Burnside. He cuts me off as I'm coming up on the north side of the block. This man is insane, and he's after me, and I don't know what he wants to do. So instead of cross in front of his car where he could easily ram me and run me over or jump out and grab me and take me to his, murder dungeon, I ran across the street again. And then he got super pissed off again. And then I was like, the heartbeat started and the trippy dream feeling started where you're eating your pillow, it's a giant marshmallow, or you're running and you can't run, or you're flying and you can't fly, that feeling of in between. And I just launched myself. I knew I was running for my life, trying to get to this strip club, right? My savior. And he's speeding around the block. He's showing off a little bit. And there's a point where I know he's coming out between 2 blocks, and it's all I can do is to duck under a car. So I squeezed my body tightly under this car. I'm laying in oil and Portland rain, and my bag is held tightly under my arm, and I'm shaking and my heart is beating, and he comes over to this car and yanks me out. I'm totally done. And that fear, like, I've been in worse situations where bad stuff has happened. I've been in scarier situations where I had less control. But that moment of being a scared little animal tucked in a hole, not knowing what was happening, with no control over the situation, was a very special peak of fear. And I eventually listened to his car engine stop. Like, it got further and further off in the distance. I rolled myself out from under the car and ran to the Doug Fir, called a cab, and had the cab drop me off at home. It was like 2 blocks, but I needed that cab ride. Even if it was with a really sketchy cab driver, I needed that cab ride. So I get inside, I lock my door, and like, it's not over. It's not over because I can still hear this man looking for me, gunning his engine, screeching around corners through this industrial Portland neighborhood, looking for me. Like, what did he want with me? What was he going to do? And I barely slept that night, just feeling like a little hunted rabbit. And that right now is how I feel. That's how I feel right now. I feel like a little hunted rabbit, not knowing what is happening. I feel like the virus is coming to get me, and it's gunning around corners, and it's waiting in the air, and it's sitting on Kleenex boxes, and Ralph's just waiting for me to touch it. But I know that this peak of fear, you can't live in it forever. Like, it has to subside. So I just wanted to share that story with people who are maybe feeling that same heightened, like, heartbeat dream anxiety, and you're not alone. And it is a pretty scary thing to not know what lies ahead. But yeah, this is just one type of fear, and worse things have happened to us, and we'll weather it the best we can. So Ryan, very interested in seeing what tarot card you come up with for that story. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in.
Thank you, Suzy. I always get angry when people are in peril in their stories, even though I know they're telling the story to me because they're okay. Like, I know it ends okay. Like, I still get so anxious on behalf of other people. And like, boy, that dream state where you feel like you're running, or like running in slow motion, like that's a terrible feeling. And I went back and forth on the cards for a while, but I think really how Suzy ended that story solidified it with me, where there's a moment of surrender in situations like that. And there is a card of being trapped and surrendered. It's called the Hangman, or sometimes he's called the Traitor, but it's... this deck is backwards, but normally the figure is inverted and being hung by his foot, and it's being trapped in a difficult situation, but it's finding repose amidst that, and being able to embrace that it's temporary. Like, that's not your fate. Like, you're not going to hang there forever. It's a transitory state, and I think the whole world right now, we're in a transitory state. Like, we're definitely things are upside down and backwards from how they normally are. We're being suspended in sort of, I mean, it's not like an alternate universe, but we're sort of suspended in an alternate reality altogether at this point. And I think the Hangman captures that perfectly. And so I'm going to use that card for Suzy's story. And then I have another card. We had a storyteller who wanted to be here tonight, but there's too much going on with the state of the world and everything. Miranda King couldn't join us tonight, but she gets a card anyway, and she reached out to me before the show to let me know it wasn't going to work out, and like, as she described what was going on, it was like the perfect, there's a card called the Wheel of Fortune, and it sums up sort of the current state of affairs, where the wheel of fortune spins, and sometimes you go up on the wheel and sometimes you go down. And I feel like we very much are in a moment where fortunes are turning, and we're all sort of. I had a moment yesterday where I reached out to a friend who was kind of struggling with everything that was going on, and I was able to reassure my friend, and I felt okay. And then I don't know what happened, but by the time we got to yesterday evening, all of a sudden I wasn't okay. Like, I was fine all day. I reassured other people, and then last night I went online, I looked at the internet, and I was just like, fuck. And I think that's the wheel. We're all riding the wheel, and we're all going up and down. So Miranda couldn't be here with us, but she gets the wheel of fortune for being overtaken by the current events. And coming up next is someone I'm really excited to hear a story from. She reached out to me online. She was excited by the idea of this show, and I'm thrilled with technology. We're able to bring someone on who's not in Los Angeles at the moment, and so that's something fun we can do with a virtual show that we can't do with a regular show. Please welcome Robin Gelfenbien. And I didn't check in. I feel like I just butchered her last name. I didn't check with her how to pronounce that beforehand. But please welcome Robin.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. It's totally fine. Hi, everybody. I am in New York City. My name is Robin Gelfenbien, or as CVS likes to say when they leave me voicemails for when my prescription's ready, Robin Gelfenbien. So don't worry, Ryan, it's completely fine. So hello from the East Coast. It is almost midnight here, but I'm excited to be here, so thank you for having me. This story was essentially inspired by just sort of the theme of spirituality from the tarot cards, and it's one of my favorite stories to tell, so here we go. Okay, so 12 years ago, I'm standing in front of a room full of strangers at a singing workshop at a retreat center upstate. And I'm there because I really want to do something nourishing and fun for myself. For the past few months, I've been working 80 hours a week at a job that's like completely killing me. I almost get killed in a steam pipe explosion. And then my boyfriend breaks up with me. And I think, I'm a little on edge, but I'm like, it's fine. I've got this. And then one night I almost burned down my apartment, and I think, maybe I don't got this. So I'm singing in front of all of these strangers because I love to sing. Singing is my happy place. And everything's going great until the instructor starts peppering me with all these questions, and little by little, he's getting more and more personal, and I just burst into tears. I'm completely humiliated, and I think I've got to get out of here. I'm so embarrassed. So I decide to go out on a walk. I love being in nature. I'm like, this will be good, clear my head, And so I'm walking out on this country road, and there's these rolling hills. There's nobody around. I see maybe one car drive past me, and I head up into this residential area. I take a left, and I'm heading up this hill, and I get to the top of the hill, and I look to my left, and all of a sudden I see this dog charging towards me from like 20 yards away, and I instantly freeze and I stop breathing, and it looks like I froze on the, okay, no, for a second I thought I froze on the live stream. Life imitating art. Life imitating life? Anyway, so I instantly freeze and I stop breathing, and I'm watching this dog getting closer and closer, and it crosses the lawn and just lunges at me, and it bites down so hard onto my canvas bag. Thank God I had it on my left arm. And this dog is going to town on my bag. And all I see are like fangs and drool. And it's like, I'm trying to pull my bag away, and I'm screaming. I'm trying not to blow out your ears. I'm screaming, let go, let go. Hopefully that didn't hurt you. And like my voice just is like echoing into the abyss because nobody is around. And I am so nervous. And then I'm even more freaked out because I realize it's a pit bull. and I am losing my mind, and I'm screaming at, let go, let go. And it is not loosening its death grip on my bag. And I am so nervous. And then after like a minute or so, I realized like, okay, I think it clearly wants whatever's in my bag and not me. And so I try a different tactic, and I go, it's okay, doggy. You can let go. You can let go. That doesn't work. And then I hear from across the lawn, grab his collar and let go. And I look up and I see this man who's maybe in his like 80s, who's so frail, at least from a distance. And he says, grab his collar and let go. And I go, you do it. And then he says it to me again. And I say, you do it. Because I'm so worked up and I'm so angry. And then I realize like he can't hear me. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to have to drag this dog to him. So I have the dog attached to my bag, and we're in this like fucked up three-legged race, and I'm like dragging the dog across the lawn, and I finally get to the house where the man is standing, and I look up at him, and he says, grab his collar. And I'm like, I heard you. But he can't hear me. And so then he says to me, so then I'm like looking at the dog, and I'm like, I guess I have no choice. You're like, what am I supposed to do? And I just see like drool coming down off of his mouth, and it's just like, and I just see teeth. And finally, like the dog blinks, and I just grab his collar really quickly, and just like that, he lets go. And I'm like, it's so freaking easy. And I'm so upset because I'm just like, I came up here for some like peace and relaxation, and I just wanted to sing. And so I put in this was how long ago this was, I put in my iPod. And the song that comes up on my iPod was the Dixie Chicks, I'm Not Ready to Make Nice. And I'm like, I'm not ready to make nice. I'm pissed. This is bullshit. I wish this hadn't happened. But luckily, I had, by chance, a massage scheduled. So I was like, thank goodness. So I head over to this dimly lit hut for my massage. And I'm crying like on the way there. And I walk in, and I'm greeted by my massage therapist, whose name is Aurora. And I think, of course, that's your name. And I explained to her everything that has just happened. And she's like, oh gosh, Robin, I'm so sorry. Please come in. I'll take good care of you. And I'm thinking, you know what? This is so good. I'm literally in good hands. And so she brings me into the room. There's like lemongrass candle burning, and like Enya's playing, and it's so relaxing. And like I take off my clothes and I lie down on the table, and she says, Robin, I'd like to set an intention for today's massage. And I'm lying there thinking, yeah, intentions are good, intentions are good. And she says, our intention for today's massage is to send love and light to the dog. And I instantly freeze, and I'm like, the dog? The dog. Like, I was hoping for love and light for me. How about some love and light for me? And she goes, Robin, you seem a little tense. And I'm like, you think? And I'm like, can anybody in this place have any empathy, please? And then she says, Robin, it's not the dog's fault. And I shoot up from the table, and I go, listen, Aurora, this just happened a few minutes ago. I'm really not that enlightened yet. And I just still need some time to process like everything that just happened. Plus, like when I got here, like the singing teacher berated me, and I tell her everything that's been happening in New York, and I tell her how there's asbestos in my company's office and how there's contaminated water, and I'm the only person who's been drinking out of it because I didn't get the memo, and I just telling her like every single thing. And then I say, plus, earlier this year, a homeless man threw a open beer at me, and he ruined another one of my bags, and I just don't understand why this keeps happening. And she goes, oh, Robin, I know what it means. Please lie down. And so I finally catch my breath, and I lie back down. I'm like, sail away, sail away, sail away. And she puts her hands on my back, and she says, Robin, you need to let go of some baggage. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's a little on the nose, don't you think? And I'm so angry at her. And I don't want to believe her. I really don't. But as I lie there and I see my bag over in the corner that's like completely teared to shreds, thanks to Cujo, I think about my ex and everything that I've just been through, and I'm like, maybe I do, Aurora. Maybe I do. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. That was like that hit a lot of buttons for me. I had a pit bull encounter of my own when I was very young. Like I'm sympathetic. They are terrifying when they're not well behaved. I like that story a lot. And speaking of on the nose, the card for that story is strength. And if you see, it's actually a lion, and in the traditional depictions, it's the mouth is being held open or closed of the lion, but the hand there, it almost looks like it's grabbing the collar, and like it's too much for me to resist pairing that with this story, because it's like. You had to find your inner strength. You had to deal with it, and then and then the as if the dog encounter wasn't enough to deal with, you have Aurora like piling on top, and it's like now you're being now you're being critiqued for not wanting to send love and life to this animal that like you had a vicious encounter with. That's like too much, but you. There's there's nothing that won't happen in this world that someone won't try to make your fault. Like the victim blamers are endless, and it's like you have to be strong in the face of that. So we're dealing with another major arcana here. That's definitely strength, and the woman taming the lion, or in this case, the pit bull. And I love that so much. I'm sorry that happened, but it makes for good material. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Robin. And up next is a storyteller I got to know through a lot of different storytelling venues in Los Angeles, but he also hosts, when we're not all quarantined, he hosts the Muse Lit Salon, which is a great place to workshop works in progress. There's a writing workshop beforehand. It's a great show, and that's at a place called the Hey Hey, and I can't wait till we're back on normal time and we're doing that again. But I'm very pleased he's here with us tonight, live from quarantine. Please welcome Alex Stein.
Hey, thanks, Ryan, and thank you to Robin and Suzy and MJ and Miranda in absentia. I was trying to think of what story to tell tonight, and I decided to tell this story, which is unusual, and you'll see why. It is autobiographical, but it is part of a series of stories I did and released one per day during the Iditarod called Tales from the Trail, which are stories about dogs, mushing, and sled dog races from a variety of different perspectives. And this one is called Last, and it is from the perspective of a dog. I remember my first time. I'd been watching the others get in harness, wondering what it was like to pull like that. How strange to think of you behind me instead of in front of me, playing with me or feeding me. My life before then was happy in the dog yard, running around, frolicking. But the others would go out, and when they'd come back, they had this look about them like they knew the big secret. And I wanted to know it too. And then one day it was my turn. From the start, I loved pulling the sled, even if it was just around the lake. And after a few months, whenever I came back to the dog yard, the puppies looked at me like I knew the big secret, because I did. I liked the feel of the snow. I loved the way my shoulders would pull on the harness and the line would pull taut and the sled would move forward. I loved the sounds of all the dogs panting and pulling and moving together. I liked the camping trips, being out at night, eating on the trail, sleeping on straw under the stars. I remember that one time when all the other dogs were asleep and it was just you and me awake in the middle of the night, looking up, watching the northern lights dance for what seemed like hours. I loved feeling you riding the brake, trying to slow us down, hearing you call out commands, feeling the whole team move like a single 70-foot long organism. I didn't like the races at first. There were too many dogs, too many people, so much noise, and way too much to smell. But you took me aside during my first race and you told me it would be okay. You told me there were a lot of dogs at the beginning and there were a lot of dogs at the end, but most of the time it would just be us, me and my pack and my human. There were some great races, times when we did more than anyone thought that we could, when everything fell into place and nothing could go wrong. And there were some bad races. You got discouraged a few times. We got sick a few times. The sled broke a lot. But you always made it good. Good for us. You moved me around over the years, put me in team, in wheel, in swing. I was never the main leader, but I could lead. I knew the commands. I knew how to keep a team going. I knew the secret language of every dog who came before me and every dog who will follow after I'm gone. I loved every run and nearly every race. I think you know. I think you know already. I've lost a few steps. I get tired more quickly. You joke with me. Tell me you're a few steps slower yourself. I felt my paws a lot this year. And they're good paws, but they're not puppy paws. Not anymore. The yearlings smell it on me too, like I smelled it on the older dogs when I was young. And it's not the end yet, but it's coming. They know. We all know. This will be my last race. Oh, I'll still run with you. I'll still help corral the puppies and teach them everything I know, but my 1,000-miler days are done after this. And my 300-miler days too. The mind still wants to go. The mind still thinks I'm a puppy. But the body knows better. Legs cramp more. Nose can't pick up the scent of the trail as quickly. And honestly, the idea of being a couch dog suddenly appeals to me, and it never used to. You seem sad as you walk the line giving us snacks. So I nuzzle you to cheer you up. You grin at me and I know what you're thinking. I've cheered you up too much. You think I have another year of racing in me. I catch your eye. I want to be sure that you know. And I want you to be okay with it. You look at me for a long time and then you nod and look away. You don't want to admit it, but yeah, you know. You humans get so mushy about these things. You let sadness wash over all the joy. We can read you. We get sad when you're sad. Still, we know. We dogs always know when it's time, and we try to help you, to remind you of how happy this makes all of us. I hope you get it, but I'm never really sure. And, the older dogs used to say that when they taught me how to be part of the team. I didn't understand it then. I was too busy letting the joy of the trail wash over every fiber of my being. I understand it now. And it's okay. All of it. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still have a job to do. You rub the area by my nose where the fur's gone gray, right where I like it. This will be my last time here with you on this trail. I strain forward. Come on, pull the hook already. Let's do this. One last long run to the finish. You, me and this amazing team one last time. My last great race. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. That was awesome. I really like. I had a friend who over eloquently once described storytelling to someone else as first person narrative, and that's always cracked me up. But I also like that it doesn't always have to be first person. That we can tell true stories and share true things and experiences about ourselves through different perspectives, other than just our the traditional first person narrative. I like that a lot, and it, I'm not built for cold. I don't like cold weather, but it makes me want to go dog racing in the snow hearing that. And the card I've paired with that is the Knight of Wands. And the suit of wands has to do with intuition, and intuition really played a large part in what you're sharing about the dog. The dog intuits a lot before he intellectually knows what's going on. And in addition, the Knight of Wands is the most active of all of the knights. It's one of the most active cards there is. It's charging forward. The dog wants to pull the sled. It's moving forward. It's the desire to move on with life and keep going forward. So I like that a lot. I like that story a lot, and I'm using the wands for that. And so we have quite a spread to look at here. And we started with the Queen of Cups. We went to the Hangman, then the Wheel of Fortune, then Strength, then the Knight of Wands. And hold on one second. I'm gonna try to bring that all up so we can we can look at that all together. I just brought up the tarot cards, but apparently when I do that, I'm still learning as we go on this. When I put the tarot cards on screen, we lose my audio, so I'm going to backtrack a little. But the Queen of Cups is sort of emotional mastery or more of maturity, and that was from MJ's story and with her daughter. And then Suzy's story brought us to the Hangman, and that's kind of very appropriate for the moment in time where we are with the world, where it's a moment of surrender and temporarily yielding to uncomfortable circumstances. And then Miranda, who couldn't be here with us, was assigned the Wheel of Fortune because the wheel of the world was spinning and kept her from being here tonight. And then with Robin, we had Strength and the lion, aka dog, and Aurora making smartass comments about it. And then finishing off with Alex and the Knight of Wands with the dog's intuition about learning the secret and knowing what life's really about, and also perceiving when the end of that is. So when we put that all together, I think what we have is sort of a keynote of surrendering to the ups and downs in life, but also being aware that, like in Robin's story, we want someone else to grab the dog's collar. But ultimately, with the coronavirus, with everything, with the economy, we're gonna have to grab that collar ourselves. Like it's gonna be us to get the dog off. We're gonna have to do that. And the finishing up with the Knight of Wands is when we summon our strength, when we move past the hangman and the ups and downs of life and the wheel of fortune, keeping in mind the emotional maturity of the Queen of Cups, when we do all that, much like the dog, we will have what at times seems like boundless energy to move forward. We will be in motion again. Like the current state of things is not how things are going to be forever, and the hangman will fade away. And we will end up back in motion. And what's going to be of particular value in getting us there is our sense of intuition. Not necessarily, we can't think of our way out of what's going on with the world currently. It's not head knowledge that's going to get us out of that. It's our sense of intuition, what's right and wrong, and our creative imagination, and our sort of our inner guide. And we're going to hopefully when this is all over, we're going to hit the ground running, much like the knight and much like the dog in Alex's story. So I'm so happy everyone came out to share these stories with me, with all of us tonight, and I'm so happy for everyone that tuned in. And this has been Carded Tarot Tales. I'm Ryan. Thank you and good night. And then also, actually, wait, don't go yet. If you're on the YouTube live stream, I'm going to be posting a Google Hangout link to that. And a friend had suggested that maybe we wanted to get together and socialize after the show. So if you're interested, if you want to jump in on a little video chat afterwards and say hi to everyone who is watching or whoever chooses to stick around, please do so. I'll be there. I believe Erica will. I'm not sure who else will show up, but that could be fun as well. So thank you all for participating in this with me. This was this is more fun than you should be allowed to have in a quarantine. So thank you so much. Bye, everyone.